You know, we often think of Easter, and I guess when you're younger, you often think of the Easter bunny and eggs, and then eventually, if you're spiritual, you start to think of Easter, and the first thing you think about is Jesus and 3 days and the resurrection. And when making this video, I wanted to kind of think about what the true meaning of Easter was, because Easter is kind of a more serious, spiritually speaking, it defines everything that our religion, and it's really just there in those 3 days that describes everything that we need to know about faith. Like in Mark, we open up on the disciples talking about a man who was expelling demons and talking about the word and using Jesus' name. And they denounced this man because he wasn't one of the 12. And Jesus responded, "Do not forbid this man, for anyone who speaks miracles in my name is on our side." The last thing that Jesus says after he performs a miracle or he does something magical is not to tell anyone what you've seen. And then he goes on down the same road that in the Jerusalem that most likely all these disciples have continued to carry forth down the same road day in, day out for their entire lives. It became kind of like a routine, and they were always used to this road, and they were used to everything that they would see on this road. And then it was maybe just a little different on the way back. He was entering into the gates of Jerusalem on the back of a mule. So now if we want to pause for just a second and think about, he was entering on the back of a mule. A school bus just passed. And there's a lot of, this audio is probably going to be terrible. So then he enters on the back of a mule. If we just think about it for a second, a grown man stepping on a little mule, a little donkey, or even if it was a full-size mule, a stubborn wild beast that they just randomly came upon. And if we just pause for a second and think, what would we expect to have oh boy, for a second and think, what would happen if any grown man nowadays would step on the back of a mule? I wouldn't recommend it. You'd end up flat face on the dirt. And Jesus is able to ride this thing like a tame horse into the gates of Jerusalem. And it was like a slap in the face to all the officials, because this is something that was in the scriptures of the time, that the Messiah would come back on a mule, and this is exactly what he did. And so right when they saw this man entering on the back of a mule, they knew, from their eyes, they knew he was trouble, because how could this peasant be the Messiah? Flipped over to John, Jesus says bluntly, "If you are not all clean, and if I, your teacher and Lord, have washed your feet, then you also shall wash each other's feet, for I have established an example. For I have set forth an example for you to follow." And there it is, the mission statement. And that's exactly what I meant in making this video, is I want to be able to make a message about what the true meaning of Easter is. And just like any message I ever make, any message I ever deliver, it always comes down to Jesus setting forth an example. Not so much worship me as a king, is that this is how you ought to treat one another as human beings. For it took one so holy and righteous to come down in the form of a child to teach us exactly how to behave. Because everyone continues to look to the sky and look to the heavens, and they refuse to look each other in the eye, and they continue to get more and more distant. And in this generation, we continue to get more and more distant from one another. We continue looking to the sky for answers. We refuse to do anything. We refuse to actually put the weight into our own hands to decide our own fate. We continue clenching our fists and begging and pleading, but no one ever has the willpower to actually see change. For if there's anything that's going to change the world, but if one random act of kindness, maybe that's enough. Is it not a testament to love and mercy to lay down your life for another? Or is it not a testament to that love or mercy to watch the spirit of a father, to watch his son lay down his own life for the sins that he had never committed? We end with 12 disciples who once followed, sitting alone in a room scared that they were going to be next. And then when he returns, he doesn't come in lights and magic and majesty. He comes in a soft whisper. He comes in a soft voice or a random face on that same usual road, the same highway that they had traveled for years, the same journey that had been part of their day-to-day lives that felt somewhat different. But when they saw that same usual face, that same usual voice, the voice that they had grown accustomed to as a teacher, the face that they had worshipped, the man that they had loved, they see a random act of kindness that was taught by their teacher, that reminded that that spirit lived on. And that is when the resurrection became real. When the men and women that followed as students and disciples of the one they called their God took the responsibility to take the things that he had taught them into their own responsibility into their lives to spread the message themselves. All the times that Jesus said, do not tell what you have seen, do not tell the world what they have seen, although everyone who saw him perform a miracle, they did go out and tell them. They did go out and tell the world, but they waited until after the resurrection. It speaks to the human mentality that when you tell someone not to do something, they're bound to do it anyway. And when someone is bound, raises someone up from the dead, or when someone gives sight to the blind or walks on water, they're going to speak of this. But Jesus always said, don't tell anyone what you've seen. So Jesus didn't want anyone to know these miracles that he had performed. He wanted people to know the love that he had for the children. He wanted the mercy he had for the weak, and the power that everyone has in the responsibility of their existence. That a single fleeting moment, a single word that you speak, a single in your actions, in your movements, in your day-to-day usual journeys, you have the responsibility to affect change in your life and in lives all around the world. And nowadays, more than ever, you can change the world that you live in. You can change the world that you see. If something doesn't look right, you have the right to speak up in a way never before, in a way that no generation had before. Because in the days of Jesus, there's 12 disciples having to walk all the way across the Middle East, having to spread the word person by person, soul by soul, spirit by spirit. And nowadays, I can hopefully change lives in a vlog. I can hopefully change lives in a video message. And hopefully this actually turns out good. And ultimately, I set out to, I wanted to make a message that was like a serious Easter message. I think I did that.